Welcome to Live with the Eczema Doc, brought to you by Clean Body, where we believe that you can heal your skin from within by cleaning your body. I'm Dr. Fong, a naturopathic doctor specializing in eczema, and I'm here to guide you through the journey of understanding the root causes of your eczema so that you can finally achieve the clear, healthy skin you deserve. Each week, we combine research-backed insights, science-based strategies, and my years of clinical experience to uncover what's really triggering your eczema and how you can take control for lasting relief. Let's dive into today's episode and uncover the next step to healing your skin from within. Hello, everyone. This is Live with the Eczema Doc, and today I am going live to talk about the eczema epidemic. Why are our kids having so much eczema? Why is this really on the rise? And this is a problem that I am calling the eczema epidemic because I am really noticing that more and more children are being born with eczema. And this is a huge problem. And I want to answer that question as to why. What's going on here? We're going to look into the modern factors that might be causing this, what I'm calling again, an epidemic. And so in the first part of today's live, we are going to talk about what are the surprising factors causing the eczema epidemic in kids and then therefore adults. So let's talk stats first. There are so many children being born with eczema, and the diagnosis rates have increased since 1997, and this is from a National Health Interview Survey. So from 1997 until now, the rates of kids being diagnosed with eczema has increased from 8% to 15%. That is almost double. And we're going to look at why that's happening today. The prevalence of eczema symptoms has increased approximately 0.9% or 1% per decade among adolescents and 1.2% per decade among children over a 27-year period. So every decade, we're seeing more and more children being diagnosed with eczema. So today, I really want to understand why this is happening. And I'm going to postulate that there are a couple of reasons why this is happening. So first of all, we know that genetics does play a role here. And studies show that 20 to 30% of children with eczema have what's called a filaggrin mutation. Filaggrin is essential for maintaining that skin's protective barrier. So this can be important in terms of genetics, but what we have seen over time is that this gene isn't necessarily being expressed more nowadays, but potentially things like exposure to pollutants, changes in diet, maybe the fact that we're indoor nowadays instead of outdoors all the time, the fact that we're using indoor heating and air conditioning, and even the hygiene hypothesis can cause this already compromised skin barrier potentially to be more reactive. So although we have that genetic component, I want to talk epigenetics today, which is what are we doing in our lives and our lifestyle to potentially cause this problem to be, expressed more in our population today. Now, one of the issues that's happening is more of our kids are being born via C-section. And research has found that when 20% of cesarean-born infants within 1 year of age have a higher chance of developing eczema. Now, why is this the case? When a baby is not born vaginally, it's possible that they are missing out on the exposure of the beneficial bacteria that they might get when they are going through the birth canal vaginally. And this does support a healthy microbiome. And as we've talked about in previous sessions, the microbiome is quite important in an eczema case. And for me, it's actually that number one root cause is we really need to think about microbiome. Now, C-sections have increased over time. And so this might be one explanation as to why we're seeing more and more eczema babies out there. So worldwide, right now, 1 in 5 births are C-sections. And that's a pretty big number. And that's an estimate given by the World Health Organization. And they estimate that by 2030, it's going to be 1 in 3. So they are estimating that C-sections are increasing. Now, that's in the world. So in the United States, we see that 32% of births are now being delivered via C-section. And that likely is going to be on the rise as well, too. So C-sections are that first one is how we are actually entering into this world can be playing a role. And, for each person, each baby, we need to take this into account. Of course, for those kids with eczema who haven't been born via C-section, then this may not be something that's playing a role. The next thing is, how are we feeding our infants? Is this via breastfeeding? Is it via formula feeding? And breastfeeding really has some protective properties that may protect our children against having eczema. Breastfeeding provides essential antibodies and anti-inflammatory agents and really helps that baby's immune system to really flourish. In a large-scale randomized trial, it's actually called the PROBIT study. They found that exclusive breastfeeding for the first 3 months significantly reduced the incidence of atopic dermatitis or eczema by up to 30% in childhood. So this can be a really important factor as well. Now, of course, some of us aren't able to breastfeed. And then what we are noticing is that maybe a lot of women choose to breastfeed in the beginning. So the stats are that 84.1% of infants born in 2021 were exclusively breastfed. And then by 6 months, we see that number drops to 59.8%. By 12 months, we see that's dropping to 39.5%. And then exclusively breastfed babies, it's dropping to 46.5% in the 3 months and then down to 27.2% at the 6-month mark. So we're really seeing that over time, women are choosing to not breastfeed. And as a naturopathic doctor, we would love for you to breastfeed as long as possible. A year would be great. That is, I like to say that year after birth is kind of like the 4th trimester, and we're still really wanting to give the baby all these nutrients. Food introduction for a naturopathic doctor also may be a little bit different. So you're really getting a lot of those nutrients from the breastfeeding. And then after that year, you're then kind of introducing more and more food. So this can be really important also in this epidemic that we're seeing. All right, the next thing that I'd like to point out is the antibiotic usage that has really been increasing as well. And antibiotics, unfortunately, we are seeing that this is being used more and more, especially during pregnancy. We're seeing it being given during labor and delivery because we are doing more testing of something called Group B streptococcus. And in a large study done in Denmark from 2000 to 2010, we did find that the percentage of pregnant women filling antibiotic prescriptions increased over the decade from 28.4% to 37%. And so we are seeing that antibiotics are being prescribed more and more and more. So what is the data on this? Well, a 2013 study said that 7% increase in the risk of eczema is seen for each additional antibiotic course received during the first year of life. So every time you are given that antibiotic, we see a 7% increase in the chances of getting diagnosed with eczema. The other thing is that when mothers took antibiotics during pregnancy, it actually did increase the risk of their child developing eczema, asthma, and other allergies afterwards. And that was also dose dependent. If they did multiple rounds of antibiotics, we saw that there was a higher increase in those children having eczema. I think sometimes we think, oh, we're going to take an antibiotic and, our bodies will replenish the microbiome very easily. There was a study that showed that 30 days after taking one round of an antibiotic, we do see that 88% of a microbiome can come back. And then 60 days later, we see 89%. But we did not see in this study that it came back to 100%. So every time you are taking antibiotics, you are potentially, decreasing your microbiome by anywhere, from, about 10 or 11% potentially, right? So antibiotics being used, again, this is during pregnancy, this is during labor and delivery, this is postnatally as well too, that these can all have an effect on eczema. All right. The next reason that I think we might be having this eczema epidemic is just the environmental toxins in our world are increasing every single day. We have seen the CDC has shown that exposure to various chemicals, including BPA and phthalates, these come from plastics, has risen in the US population between 1999 and 2016. And the World Health Organization says that 99% of the global population is now exposed to air pollution levels that are exceeding safe limits. So we are seeing in studies that children with higher BPA exposure, again, that's that plastic exposure, do have an elevated risk of developing eczema. And other pollutants in the air have been shown to cause allergic diseases, including atopic eczema. And so we really are seeing that this is a problem. So, what we need to do here is, of course, we need to make sure that our environment is really clean, our immediate environment is really clean. Sometimes it can be beneficial to, instead of living in very urban environments, we do find that more rural environments, kids have less eczema. So that's another thing to think about. Get your kids out in nature, get them out having fresh air. Those are ways that we can really avoid some of these environmental toxins. And then everything you are purchasing at home, make sure you are either looking at EWG and making sure that everything you're purchasing is clean. You also can look at my product recommendations, and you can see that link in my bio. And that can also, we kind of checked out all these products and found ones that we really liked. All right, so the next one is mold exposure. Now, why is this a problem? Why is this increasingly becoming a problem? Well, unfortunately, our modern homes are often constructed with cheaper materials nowadays. These cheaper materials like drywall and fiberboard, they actually retain a lot of moisture and they're really an ideal environment for mold to grow. Now, how does this affect eczema? Well, mold spores and the volatile organic compounds that come from mold can trigger immune responses and increase inflammation and really disrupt that skin barrier. So this is something I actually find quite frequently in my eczema patients, mold. So I do find this a lot. And unfortunately, I really am seeing this as a problem in our homes. Approximately 47% of US homes have some form of mold or dampness issue. So that's quite a bit. That's, almost half of the homes in the US. And children living in homes with visible mold had a 55% increased risk of developing eczema. So this can be pretty important. The other thing is that prenatal mold exposure, like if mom was exposed to mold during pregnancy, we're actually seeing that the offspring, the kids, can have a higher incidence of eczema, that they have a higher incidence of allergy and IgE mediated response. Those are allergy responses, okay? Modern times have caused a lot of problems just overall. And the modern factors that are just kind of part of today's world, which I'll talk about in a second, have really increased our sensitization to lots of different things. So first of all, if we just kind of talk about our homes, we're staying indoor more. We have improved insulation. That means we're not ventilating our homes as well because we have, let's say, energy efficient homes. And studies have shown that higher concentrations of indoor allergens like dust mites and pet dander are typically associated with greater sensitization, especially in children. So we need to open those windows. We need to really get outside, get outdoors, have your children playing in the dirt. Yes, the dirt is actually going to be beneficial for them because it is going to have beneficial microbes in the dirt. So we need to get out there and get dirty. Urbanization is also, as I mentioned earlier, associated with higher rates in children. So we are seeing that urban pollutants and limited biodiversity. So when you're in like a very urban environment, you're really not having a lot of plants and soil, and those really help to breed the really beneficial bacteria. This is affecting our immune development. And over time, this is causing more and more eczema to happen. And then modern food practices, how we're producing our food, is also really contributing to the sensitization of food. We know that the gut microbiome is really important for developing immune tolerance to different foods. And we're seeing more and more kids are having more allergies and more sensitivities. And this could be due to the way that our food production is happening. A lot of antibiotics, a lot of pesticides. This can be disrupting the microbiome and disrupting that immune tolerance that the microbiome helps us to have. And finally, we've kind of been talking about it already, but the hygiene hypothesis really suggests that reduced microbial exposure. So the fact that our kids are not going out and playing in the dirt as much, we are using antibacterial soaps, antibacterial hand washes, we're too clean, can really actually affect our immune function. And there were studies that showed that children that had more microbial exposure, so those in larger families, those who attended daycare, those in rural areas, even those raised on farms, because they're exposed to more soil microbes and animal-associated bacteria, do have a significantly lower rate of having allergic diseases, eczema, and asthma, and those types of allergic diseases. So this is potentially part of the problem, is that we are actually too clean in our modern world, that we are killing all of the beneficial bacteria that we actually do have. Our diets are actually promoting the beneficial bacteria to not be present. And now we are ending up with eczema. And I do believe this is why so many of our children are dealing with this problem. And, I feel like even with the people I know, I feel like almost every child has had eczema. And that is just too much, and I think it's becoming more and more and more. And so we really need to address this problem. So how are we going to do that? Well, I do think there are a number of things that we can do is really promote vaginal deliveries and breastfeeding. And of course, I completely understand that not all women are able to do this. And if not, then we might need to understand, okay, how are we going to give baby some of the things that might be missing? If they were a C-section baby, can we give them probiotics? Can we make sure not to give them antibiotics? Can we be really judicious about using our antibiotics? And then if we're not breastfeeding, can we do things to promote, what might be missing in the breast milk? Are some other things to think about. And then, of course, choosing a formula that is not toxic, organic. And I usually even like to start with maybe goat's milk as a first option. It might be a little more gentle on the system. We need to make sure our kids are getting out and playing in the dirt. Let them play in the dirt. Let them pick up those beneficial microbes. Let them touch the soil, touch the plant. We are not doing that in today's world. So we really need to start doing that. And we need to open the windows and ventilate our homes. Our homes are some of the most toxic places that we are in. The indoor air atmosphere really needs cleansing. So opening those windows and ventilating the house can be really important. And then getting things like air filters. Checking for mold. So go to the product recommendations link and go to the test section and check out my mold test kits. They're really inexpensive to just kind of do a very general assessment for mold in the home. And then, of course, your diet really needs to be optimized, avoiding processed foods and GMO foods and conventional foods that are laced with pesticides. They use antibiotics, whole organic foods, very colorful. This is really going to help as well, too. And then we have to learn about all the toxins in our environment. How do we clean this up, and buy products that are clean? That's really important as well. And so this is everything I actually work on with my patients when I do see them. I end up evaluating all of these factors, that are potentially playing a role, and then doing testing to kind of confirm, okay, for you, it is microbiome imbalance, or for you, it's environmental toxins. For you, it's heavy metals. For you, it's mold. And everybody is going to potentially have a different reason there. And that's where testing is really helpful. And then we can really educate you to do all these things, and at the same time address the factors that we have found that have been imbalanced. Okay. Thank you for joining Live with the Eczema Doc. I hope today's episode provided you with valuable insights and tools to support your journey to healing your skin from within. For more information, visit www.cleanbody.health or check the links in the podcast description. You'll find the studies and resources discussed today on my blog. You can also take my free eczema root cause assessment to uncover potential triggers, or download my free eczema relief guide for quick, practical tips to calm flare-ups and help with your sleep. If you found this episode helpful, please remember to like, subscribe, and share the podcast to help others on their healing journey. And if you'd like to stay updated with future episodes, please turn on your notifications so you don't miss a thing. Please remember this podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Always consult with your healthcare provider or book a consultation with me before making any changes to your healthcare regimen. Use the code LIVE30 to enjoy 30% off as a thank you for tuning in. When you clean your body, you heal your skin from within. Thank you again for listening, and I'll see you next week.